INFJs have social anxiety. We hear this all the time. This is one of the typical stereotypes. And I'm not a social anxiety expert. Like, I'm not claiming that this is the case or this is not a case. What I can tell you, though, is that I've experienced INFJs who have something like social anxiety incredibly strong. I myself was in certain situations very much like this, and I turned it all around. So I actually believe that as INFJs, we can reframe this. We can really look at it from the perspective of what is causing us this social anxiety. This is not something we're born with. This is a way of approaching reality. This is a way of showing up that causes us overload. A typical example for this that I experience very often is watching trash TV. I cannot do this. If somebody sends me a clip of something funny from The Bachelor or something, I cannot watch it. I've never watched anything of that my entire life because I just get overloaded. There's so much distortion in there. There's so much uncomfortable energy. I cannot handle this. This is my type of social anxiety. And being in public places very often feels the same way. And this is all about INFJ energy overload. So let's talk about it. Let's understand what we can manage here, what is in our control, and what we have to say, that's not for me. I'm going to direct my life into something else. Before we get started, remember I created a brand new course for you, the 10 principles of energy mastery for INFJs. I know you voted on this and I spent quite some time working through all of that material. I actually recorded it rather shortly, but I've worked on this for a very, very long time. And so all my findings you can find in this course, and you can check it out through the link in the description. Number one, you're picking up too much emotional data. So just as the example that I said about watching a clip of trash TV, if you're in an environment and you're constantly picking up all the energy that is around you and the energy is just potent and it's noise and it's distortion, of course you're going to feel overwhelmed. This is not something that is a weakness. This is an attunement. You're actually attuned to the energy in the field. And you can direct this, you can change this. And how do you do this? Well, I always say we're the ones who set the emotional tone. If you are the one with the strongest energetic cord and you actually say, I'm going to go into the space and I'm going to focus on my energy and I'm not going to see this, it's definitely going to help. It's going to make you feel centered. That being said, you don't have to be in rooms where there's so much noise. If you're somewhere where you feel like this is happening all the time, I promise you that is not how life has to be. You can really put yourself in circles with people, at jobs, at whatever it is that minimizes that. No matter where you're at, no matter how much social anxiety or INFJ overload you experience, there's always a life that is less active than that. When I chose my INFJ Epic Life, I stepped down a notch. I actually really decided there is a layer of society I will not enter anymore. I just can't. It's not good for my system. I know there is a part of me that feels rejected because I'm not going to participate in pop culture in some kind of way, but it's just not something I can deal with. And it was the best decision ever because what I actually did was I understood myself better. I understood that I pick up so much that I have to be careful what kind of spaces I put myself in. And just because I minimize the kind of information I surround myself, that doesn't mean that my life is going to get smaller. I actually push my energy out in other ways and I express myself in other ways. So I actually get to be more in alignment with who I want to be. I get to be more successful, happier, all of that. I get to experience life way more vividly because I removed one layer of noise from my life that I said is just too confronting for me and I just can't tune it out. Number two, you feel invisible and overwhelmed at the same time. So if we're in circles where on the one hand, we feel all of this tension, but at the same time, we feel like we are not being seen, of course, it's going to lead to INFJ overload. Because you have to think of it like this. Not only are you constantly absorbed with everybody's energy and they're so loud and so noisy, and I'm not even talking about only what they're saying, just their energy altogether. It's so much and it's so uncomfortable. It's not like you go into a room and then you have this nice energy over here and this nice energy over there. It's always some distorted stuff. Somebody is not happy with themselves. Somebody else is having, an identity crisis and is blaming somebody else for it. You know what I'm talking about. So this is the one thing that we have to deal with. The other thing is that in environments where people have so much pain that they express it everywhere, they leak it onto somebody else, they project it on somebody else, you feel invisible. Because the only way you are going to be seen in this environment is if you actually express yourself, if you exude yourself, if you start fighting against that energy. And that's just not something a lot of us are willing to make. I'm not willing to do that. That's why I said I'm going to step out. Because over here, if this is the price I have to pay, no thank you. Like, yeah, that's interesting, and like life can be vivid and there's excitement and this is society and all of that, but please, come on, not at the expense of my well-being, not at the expense of my inner peace. And over here, I can be the sanest one here. I can be the one who wants the best for everybody. I can be the energy that could uplift everybody. And not only is nobody doing this, they're all suffering, but they're also thinking that I'm not here, although I'm already uplifting the entire energy in the room. If I wasn't there, the energy would be way worse. But nobody knows that, right? So you're not only dealing with negative energy around you, but on top of it, nobody's aware of what you're bringing to the table because it's so noisy, it's so distorted, it's so misaligned that people are not able to understand that you're the one who's already bringing so much positive energy to the room in order to kind of like make it sustainable and kind of make it like okay, because you're giving it your all just to improve the harmony a little bit. Number 3, your nervous system can't process fast enough. So NI is a slow process. Although we can be very quick in certain situations, it's probably because we have thought of the situation one way or another in our mind. If we're in control of a situation and we see that a person is tuned into us, yeah, we can be really quick. Yeah, we can decide what we're going to do and have like ideas here and there. But if there's so much noise going on around you, if there are people who are doing their own thing, you need to react really fast to what is going on. And this is not what we're good at. This is not what we like to do. Like, I like to process in my way, which means I'm going to do this later. I'm going to go home. I'm going to maybe passively, maybe subconsciously, but I'm definitely going to do it, process what was going on. What did I learn from the situation? How did this energy make me feel? What can I take on? What am I going to transform? What I'm going to alchemize? Whatever it is, in order to make sense of it all. What does this mean to me? What does this mean about people? Like, how am I going to move forward? This is an NI process, and you need this. We all need this. We need time to be in that space. This is our superpower. This is who we are. This is our hero function. This is where we see ourselves the most. And if we're not given that space, we're going to go nuts. Of course, we're going to feel their social anxiety because we don't even have the space to process what we're experiencing. And this can only happen if you have the space for it. And I'm really talking about space here because this is not only about saying, okay, I need the time to go home so I can be in my head. It's also to let the people who want to be in your life know that you cannot stand noise. You cannot stand it when they're constantly putting on negative emotions around you. So that means, for example, if you have a friend who's constantly putting out negative emotions about their coworker, this as well is something that really doesn't allow you to process. And you can take some of it, but you have to let people know this is what I need. And we can meet and you can be like this, but then I have to limit the time we spend together. If you really want to be in my energy as much as possible, then you really need to respect this. And if you can't do this, I will move away. And if you want to come closer to me, then this is how you have to adapt. And this is something that really works wonders because it seems like we have no power in that situation, but we do. Being around us makes other people feel good because we exude inner peace, we exude truth, we exude, just stillness, because that's what we create when we're in our NI space. And people will not recognize who you are and what kind of energy you bring to the table if it's constantly there or if you allow it to be disturbed. But if you make sure that you give yourself enough time and that you just make it a non-negotiable that, yeah, I can be in a party situation for half an hour, but then I'm leaving. And when I want to be with my friends, this is what I demand. You don't go up to people and say, by the way, I demand you to not be noisy around me. But there have to be energetic consequences. So if somebody makes you feel bad, you either remove yourself or you make it energetically clear, I don't want to deal with this. So that means if you have a friend, for example, who's constantly nagging about like their loud neighbor or whatever it is, that you tell them, I cannot deal with this. This overwhelms me. Please don't do it in my presence. I understand that you're suffering, but I just can't deal it. It overwhelms me. And then they have a choice. And if they don't get it, which can happen, it's nobody's fault, people have to experience what that means. That means you're going to actually not reach out. And if they want to reach out, then this is a price they have to pay. And once they act like this, you shut down. You can be in that room, but you can let them know energetically, I'm not really here. Like, that's not something I can stand. I don't want to be around that energy. And energetically, this way, you're teaching people, this is what I need. And then they can decide they're either going to match that and protect that space of yours, or you're just not going to be that close, which is also good. It can also be that it just tells people if they have the need to let it out, which is healthy, do it somewhere else. Don't do it around me, right? I need the space for my NI. It is just a necessity of who I am. If I can't be in that space, then I lose myself. If I can't be in that space, I don't feel good. And this needs to be respected, or I feel abused, violated, and just not like myself. And it doesn't matter how strong you actually are. Just because you can take it doesn't mean you should, because it's an overload that is definitely not good for our system. Number 4, you don't feel safe to take up space. So what you do, you make yourself smaller energetically. If we would show up in a room and be all that we are, people would feel it. They would feel it, and it makes people uncomfortable. It makes them think that we're arrogant. It makes them feel that we're full of ourselves. It makes them feel like we're weird, whatever it may be. If you show up the way you are, it will have an effect on other people. They won't be able to name it, but the energy will be there. Like, I remember when I was really young and I went to parties and all that, just the way I danced made people like freak out. And I'm not like somebody who did like crazy dances or anything. It was just being so present and being so much in my own energy, like, makes people uncomfortable. People are not used to that. That's the whole thing. And all you're doing, you're just embodying what it means to be okay with yourself. And we have to actually take this on as something that we want to do, in a way of, I'm not going to shrink myself, because every single time I make myself smaller than I actually am, I'm putting strain on my system. This requires energy. Staying small, pretending like you're less than you actually are, requires energy. And I understand that we're doing it because we don't want to hurt other people. We don't want to desert them. We don't want to take up their space. But it's something that we have to learn is a necessity. You're a human being like every single other person on this planet. If you want to be kind to others, you have to allow yourself to be all that you are. Because when you do this, you subconsciously are inviting people to do the same thing. It's like saying, I need this to breathe. If I cannot be like this, what is it all for? Like, there's so much we're losing if we're not showing up as ourselves. And it's a price we shouldn't pay. I have complete compassion for everybody who's not doing this. This is, first off, not easy. Second of all, it's not conscious for a lot of us. If we've never learned what it means to really embrace our energy, we don't even know where to start. But if you look at it just from a moral standpoint, just from an ethical, am I allowing myself to do this? Always tell yourself, the more I make myself small, the more I'm telling other people they're also not allowed to be who they are. The more you take up space, because this is your birthright as a human being to energetically be who you are, the way you are, no matter how it affects other people. And that does not mean that you're actively going out of your way and saying you're ugly, you're uncomfortable, you don't dress nice. We don't do that. We're just talking about how your energy makes other people feel. And it's so automatic. And we have just conditioned ourselves that when I'm being myself, I get rejected, I get abandoned, and on top of that, I feel like I'm hurting people. And if you really switch around and say, okay, that's a price that I have to pay, it's something that doesn't feel good in the moment, but once I've really embraced this, then there's no going back, because you know I'm never going back. This feels so much better. And on top of it, I'm actually showing people you have the right to be yourself. And we all know that this is the goal, right? If everybody accepted themselves the way they are, you know we would be in much more harmony. You know that societies would be better. So how can we not take this opportunity to model that? That's the really kind thing to do here. And you will also learn through this that you'll actually have more energy, because you're not using energy to make yourself smaller or more digestible for other people. Number 5, you haven't anchored yourself in before going into any social interaction. That's like going into a storm and not having an umbrella. It's just going to happen. If you don't anchor yourself in, you're going to get drained. People are going to pick up your energy. And they're not going to do this because they're bad people. Like, I've seen people who I respect so much, who are genuinely good people, who I know have like such a good soul and like want so many good things. If they're in pain, they're going to siphon your energy. They're going to take from you, and you're going to feel drained afterwards, and you don't know why, and you will feel responsible, and you will feel like it's my fault and all of that. Trust me, you have to anchor yourself in. People will try to take from your energy when they're not in alignment with who they are, when they're in pain. And we can look at that with compassion and still know I can't leave myself open to this. I have to be the grounding force. I have to be the one who's stable in this, because if I'm not protecting myself, I cannot help anybody else either. So it always starts with you. And how do you ground yourself? Well, these are the things that, we talk in the course about, like listening to music beforehand, practicing this, remembering this is my energy, and I'm going to make sure that this is how I enter any room that I go into, and this requires energy. But think of it like this. Let's say you have 8 out of 10 points of energy, right? You're in a video game. You go into this room, and then people are picking up your energy, and because you're not, you didn't bring an umbrella or whatever it is. And at the end of the day, you have 2 points left. Okay. So the alternative is you go into the room and you bring your umbrella, meaning you're grounding yourself, which costs you 4 points of energy. So you go into the room, and now instead of 8 points, you have 4 points. But with those 4 points, you actually maintain the 4 points while you stay in the room. And 2 things happen. First off, at the end of the day, you have 4 points left, not 2. Second of all, you are actually able to stay at the state of 4, which means that everybody around you who was below that, was uplifted. And through that, it actually becomes easier to stay at a 4. So next time when you're around those people, you probably don't need 4 points of energy to ground yourself and to anchor yourself in, but only 3, because now the people around you have already been accustomed to you having a base energy level, and they sort of remember that subconsciously. So this is not something that works from the first time, but you do this a couple times, people learn this. And I have done this with people close to my like family members who are always siphoning me, always pulling me down, always not making me feel good. And through just anchoring myself and having hard conversations and making sure that I'm very firm on this is who I am and I'm not budging, they have actually turned around. Because the favorite example, which I give in almost every video, like people already quote me on this like thousands of times, is, the kid that burns its finger on the stove. You can tell them thousands of times, don't do it, you'll burn your finger. They're not going to learn. And so people have to learn this on an energetic level. So it's not something that you consciously do. You just know, okay, I shouldn't do this. This is not going to make me feel good. And that's how you have to teach people not to invade your space. And with the closest people in our lives, we know it's super important because those are the people we want to keep. And we want them to feel good about themselves. And it will help them as well. Because if you are able to maintain a good energy level, you're also helping them to accept themselves more. So if you like this topic, if you know where I'm going with this and you feel like this is beneficial to you, definitely get the video course, 10 Principles of Energy Mastery for INFJs. I specifically created this for you after the survey we did. So this is really based on what you are looking for. So I really, really hope you'll like it. I'm sure you'll get a lot out of it. And I'm really proud of it. So go check it out. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one, guys.